found an old New York Times article from 1927 that talks about Fred Trump, father of Donald Trump. So let me quote, a man named Fred Trump was among those arrested in a massive brawl between KKK members and police at a 1927 Memorial Day parade in New York City. He was not on the side of the police. Now, is it the same Fred Trump? It could have been a different Fred Trump. Well, here's interesting evidence. The Times article listed the arrestee's address as 17524 Devonshire Road in Jamaica Estates, Queens. Past local news reports noted that the Republican presidential frontrunner's father lived at that address.
We will make America great again.
Welcome. This is Information Man. Welcome to another podcast. What I'm going to attempt to do, assess in trying to do, give a critical analysis to one Donald Trump. I call it the Trump effect, the white supremacist effect. The Donald Trump effect is the white supremacist effect. That is what I'm going to attempt to do here. I'm going to play a series of clips, sort of a collage of one Donald Trump, sound bites, evidence. I can stand up on this. I can set up on this podcast and give you my opinion as to how I assess Donald Trump. Personally, I do feel that he is a white supremacist or a potential white supremacist, as they would say, under the compensatory theories, based on one criteria, his actions. Because white supremacy is a system based on strong beliefs backed up by action. And I'm here to make the argument and point out to you listening that Donald Trump is definitely walking the walk and talking the talk. And so I'm going to use sound bites, audio, to make my point as to why I feel that the Donald Trump effect in our country today is really the white supremacist effect. Because it goes all the way back to when his father was a KK member in New York, as you heard on the last clip, getting into a fight. You see, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. That is Donald Trump's father. So how can I not take an educated guess and believe that this is a man that raised Donald Trump, a man who was racist himself? And I can make an educated guess that this racist, white supremacist ideology has rubbed off on one Donald Trump. We see it in his actions, his speech, his behavior.
You know what? Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
When your house is built on a racial foundation, this is what you're going to get. When you have the president, remember, how did he rise to political prominence? It was his attacks on the birth certificate on President Barack Obama. When he announced his run, he attacked Mexicans. He has attacked numerous African Americans, the NFL players. We could go on and on and on. He is pressing the buttons of white fear in America. Just the other day, I had Charlie Sykes on my show, conservative, who said out of his own mouth that this president is playing the race card consistently. That was a white male conservative owning up to the reality of who this president is. And look, we are not shocked. 94% of black women did not vote for him. Black folks figured out real soon exactly who this guy is.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
I like to say that you were listening to one Roland Martin who broke down a nice analysis, a breakdown of one Donald Trump. He is correct. He's playing the race card. He's playing it from the top of the deck, the bottom of the deck, the middle, all sides. I want to make a statement here that will be possibly profound, but there would not be a Donald Trump in the White House if there were not for a Barack Obama. You see, a black man was president of these United States for 8 years. You had some who hated the man because he was black. They demonized his family, called them monkeys. They called one President Obama a witch doctor. They characterized him with bananas in his mouth. They did everything in America, which I've said many times before, that in America we marginalize, underestimate, and undervalue black people. We see white as superior and black or people of color as inferior. And as a manifestation of that cultural conditioning, we as people of color will even culturally and we will marginalize ourselves based on this premise. Donald Trump's campaign was ciphered in racism. His words, his imagery, the way he sees people. He sees black people as possessions.
You know what look at my African American over here. Look at him.
He ran a racist campaign based off of hate. And because of the hate for President Obama and the fact that you had a black man president for 8 years, it fueled that hate across the blue states, the red states. You see, not only are white conservatives have a propensity to be racist in general, but you also have your liberals that can also be racist. I remember one Hillary Clinton when she ran in 2008 against President Obama. She was very racial. She put out racial epithets. Donald Trump continued that same playbook with his birther movement. It was the birther movement that gave rise to one Donald Trump because of the conditions of a black man being in office, because people in this country, black or white, or all people, in one way or another had some issues with a black man being president, whether it was black people who felt President Obama didn't do enough for them, or whether there were white people who could not stand it and they were willing to hear another message from a white man who spoke all the racial tension that they needed to hear. Listen to this other clip.
Senator Jeff Sessions is referencing as evidence of Donald Trump's history of courageous conservatism. A full-page spread in the New York Times calling for the execution of the wrongfully convicted and imprisoned teenagers known as the Central Park Five. Trump was one of the loudest voices proclaiming the guilt of the black and Latino teens accused in a brutal assault in the 1989 Central Park jogger case. And he continued his crusade even after they were exonerated by DNA evidence. And another man confessed to the crime. In a 2014 editorial in the New York Daily News, Trump called the $40 million settlement between the Central Park Five and the city of New York a, quote, disgrace. Matt, Tara, and John Carlo are back with me, and joining the panel, Mark Thompson of Make It Plain on Sirius XM. Thank you very much for coming across the transom here to talk with us. So, embracing the idea that Donald Trump's conservatism is tied to his having called for the death of 5 black and brown teenagers in the Central Park Five. Add that, if you will, to his palling around with Rudy Giuliani, whose tenure as mayor of New York was not pleasant for black people in this city, and who apparently is now helping write his Law and Order speeches. What do you make of that, Mark?
Well, first of all, having someone like Jefferson Beauregard Sessions,
yes,
as you say so well in the Confederate tone, to have him, to flag for him, says a lot in and of itself, because Sessions himself is not on the U.S. District Court because of a lot of things he did. He called a former assistant U.S. attorney a boy.
Who was African-American.
Who was African-American. He prosecuted civil rights activists as a form of voter suppression and voter intimidation. He said he thought the KKK was an okay organization, and he supported the nomination of art segregation as judges. So to have him come forward and say that, along with Bannon, along with Giuliani, along with everything else we've seen even in the past 48 hours, further confirms that Trump is running a racist campaign.
As you can hear, Mark Thompson from the satellite radio station, Progressive Station, breaks it down that Donald Trump, from the get-go, was running a racist campaign. And he ran that racist campaign right into the White House. Took the White House by storm. You see, he got 54% of the white female vote. He got 23 to 24% of the young college-educated white male or female vote. You see, he got about 8 to 9% of the African-American vote, a majority of that being black conservatives, and then you had a small percentage of African-American people who felt that they would get more from a white man, more than they would get from a black man, because the white man ice is colder than the black man's ice. You see, folks thought that President Obama didn't do enough for black people, so they believed that the great white hope, Donald Trump, would do more for us. He talked about to black people, what do you have to lose? You might as well vote for me. These are the kind of things that he said. And despite his sexism, his xenophobia, and his statements such as this,
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. Right on your way. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. I can do anything.
Look at those legs. All I can see is the legs.
No, it looks good.
and as you can see there, he says you can do anything you want when you're a celebrity or when you have power. You can grab them by the pussy, meaning women. You see, white males have this sort of problem. They feel that when they have money, when they have power, and they have been in power, they feel that they are invincible. They can do whatever they want, that the laws of the land do not apply to them, which is why you see in 2017 so many white males today, who find themselves in trouble with sexual harassments, from Mark Lauer to movie producers, executives, actors, who are finding themselves impacted by their actions. These are the sort of behaviors that white males have gotten away with for a long time. Now, although you have white entertainers, white executives, and even white TV personalities like Mark Lauer now facing some penalties for their behavior, you still don't have any of these men being arrested, and you still had one Donald Trump who was doing the same type of activity towards disrespecting women, finds himself in the year 2017 smack dab in the White House, smack dab playing around with his Twitter, and possibly could get us into a nuclear war with Korea. This is the kind of manifestation of the white supremacy that is in the White House, whether it be Steve Bannon and his administration, who, although he let him go, he surrounds himself with the racist type. He has Jeff Sessions as the top police officer of our land, who is engaging in trying to harass black people and identify black people as black identity extremists. And those are usually black people who are standing up against police brutality against black women and men and children. And we get labeled black identity extremists when you have the alt-right, which is just a racist supremacist organization. You have individuals coming together talking about blood and soil, you won't replace me, with tiki torches. And you have Donald Trump saying that there was blame to go around on both sides. And it makes me wonder, when you talk about blame on both sides, we have nothing to blame but look at ourselves as Americans and ask ourselves, why did Americans vote for this man enough to get him in office? Now, he did not get the popular vote. He won by the electric. The electric should be destroyed. Hillary Clinton, with all of her flaws, I must admit, did win the popular vote, and Donald Trump got in through some of the most shadiest means. You also had the suppression of voter rolls to keep African Americans and other people of color from being able to cast their vote properly. Let me play some of what Donald Trump said in the Charlottesville situation, how he sort of always apologizes and takes up for these white supremacists.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at him? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt? Let me ask you this. What about the fact that they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. Fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. And what I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side, and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
This is Barack Obama. You're listening to Information Man. Don't forget to subscribe.
So what you have there, once again, is another audio evidence of the white supremacy, the bias of one Donald Trump. He's spending a lot of time trying to spin the narrative that although the white supremacists or the Nazis were out there causing some problems with running people over with cars, and that was wrong, he kind of identified the individual as being the person who was bad for doing that, but he did not call out the group. But in the one hand, when it came to what you would call the so-called liberal or the activists against the white supremacist Nazi group with the tiki torches, he sort of said that they were the ones that were the problem. He said that the white supremacist groups, or the group that was out there, had a permit. I think in one of the audios he talked about they had a permit, where the other group protesting against them didn't have a permit. See, white supremacy works in this way, folks. It works on both sides, left and right, to create confusion. We have to understand what white supremacy is and how it operates.
You do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works. Everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
You know what? Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
Yes, it will confuse you, people. You must wake up to understanding the codes, the coded language that white supremacists use. Their manipulation on our mass media, radio, print media, audio media, all types. I'm going to play for you. Keep in mind, Donald Trump has a history in New York of housing discrimination. People tend to forget about that. This man is rooted. His feet are barely rooted, or deeply rooted into the racist behavior that falls not too far from his father.
Emerging about the housing discrimination that was perpetrated by Donald Trump and his father across literally decades in New York City and the surrounding area. And it is the perfect distillation, crystallization of the sort of housing discrimination that was suffered by African Americans in this country over more than 100 years. Even once we had moved past the terrible sin of slavery, policies like enacted by this organization were common across the country. Now, we got some videos for you. In this first one, you're going to see a man who is charged with dealing with some of the applications for housing and his experience when an African-American woman tried to move into a property owned by the Trumps.
Just take me back into that room. So you were sitting in the room and who was there? Describe the scene to me.
A black lady completed an application for an apartment in the building, a one-bedroom apartment, as I recall. and it was a very professionally writ application. It was checked and verified. There were no liens, no judgments against her. And she was calling me on a daily basis wanting to know the status of her application. And one day, Mr. Trump and his son Donald came into the office, and I asked Fred Trump what I should do with this application because she's calling me constantly. And his response to me was, you know, I don't rent to the N-word. Put the application in the desk and forget about it.
So Fred Trump used the N-word and told you we don't rent to people like that.
That is correct, yes.
And Donald Trump was right there?
Donald Trump was right alongside his father when I was instructed to do that, yes.
And when his father told you not to rent apartments to people of color, what was Donald's response?
And he shook his head, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's the way it's supposed to be. Donald Trump shook his head, as the man stated, when his father said he does not rent to niggas. That's really what he was saying. They were being polite by using the N-word, but I'm going to keep it 100% real. He said he doesn't rent to niggas. Donald Trump didn't do anything about it, but say that's how we do business. That's his father. That's where he's been groomed. That's what he learned from. This is the same father that was involved with a KKK rally because he's a KK member. And Donald Trump is the good old, he's a chip off the old block, not too far off the apple tree of his father. And Donald Trump made his bones messing, picking, and discriminating against President Obama, talking about his birth certificate, saying that he wasn't a citizen. I mean, all sorts of ridiculous things.
Yes, we can.
Hear this clip.
The notion that he would attack a Gold Star family that had made such extraordinary sacrifices on behalf of our country. The fact that he doesn't appear to have basic knowledge around critical issues in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, means that he's woefully unprepared to do this job.
What say you?
I think he's the worst president maybe in the history of our country. I think he's been a disaster. He's been weak. He's been ineffective. You look at this so-called recovery, it's setting record lows. It's, I guess, not since 1949 has there been anything like it. You look at home ownership. Look at what happened as an example. He talks about Ukraine. I believe I know far more about foreign policy than he knows. Look at Ukraine. He talks about Ukraine. Well, you know how tough he is, right? How tough he is with Russia. In the meantime, they took over Crimea. And I understood that. And most papers covered what I said accurately. Some didn't because the press is so dishonest. But Crimea, I mean, the Russians took it over under Obama's very powerful leadership. And, you know, he talks about me with Russia. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing, frankly, if we actually got along with Russia and worked out some kind of a deal where we...
See, there you go. Donald Trump has this love for Russia, this desire for Russia. But you see, President Obama was 100% correct in what he said.
Yes, we can.
100% correct about how he broke down one Donald Trump. Donald Trump has had a hard-on for President Obama ever since President Obama tore him a hole and clowned him at a roast, at a dinner. Donald Trump has been wanting to get back at him. All the way to this birther movement, which he was the foundation of, one Donald Trump. Hear the audio.
I want to give you a chance. Obama does not like the issue of where he was born. His own publisher, as you know, using his words, said he was born in Kenya and he lived in Indonesia. Of course, now he's denying that amazingly. So, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk, as you said you would, jobs, China, what's going on with respect to China and how they're ripping this country, what's going on with respect to OPEC and how the nations of OPEC are laughing at the stupidity of our country. That's what I'm here to talk about. You know that's what I'm here to talk about. And I thought that your introduction was highly inappropriate, but that's okay because I've gotten to know you over the years.
Well, listen, Donald. First of all, I never said we weren't going to talk about the birther issue. We had a conversation earlier today. We didn't discuss at all what we were going to talk about. I don't know what.
Very much.
I don't know why you're.
I will tell you, it's not an issue that he likes talking about. So what he does is.
You see, Donald Trump likes to argue, talk loud, which is something that a lot of Republicans do and talking heads do. When they don't want to deal with real issues, they try to out-talk you, loud-talk you. And Donald Trump is known for saying this a lot.
Fake news. Fake news.
He uses reverse psychology on people like you so that you report like, oh, gee, he's thrilled with it. He does not like that issue because it's hitting very close to home. You know it, and he knows it. But
I don't know it. Donald, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I don't understand why you're doubling down on this birther issue after the state of Hawaii formally says this is the legitimate birth certificate. He was born in Hawaii. Why are you going through all of this, Donald?
Well, a lot of people.
See, he was born in Hawaii, but Donald Trump was going over and over it because he's deep-rooted into this stuff. He's a racist, white supremacist, has issues, but yet he wants to say things like this at his campaign.
You know what? Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
Now, Hillary Clinton broke it down when she was campaigning against Donald Trump, speaking about his racism, his xenophobicness, his sexism towards women. Listen up.
Prior Republican nominees for president, I disagreed with them on politics, policies, principles, but I never questioned their fitness to serve. Donald Trump is different. I said starting back in June that he was not fit to be president and commander-in-chief. And many Republicans and independents have said the same thing. What we all saw and heard on Friday was Donald talking about women, what he thinks about women, what he does to women, and he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is, because we've seen this throughout the campaign. We have seen him insult women. We've seen him rate women on their appearance, ranking them from 1 to 10. We've seen him embarrass women on TV and on Twitter. We saw him after the first debate spend nearly a week denigrating a former Miss Universe in the harshest, most personal terms. So, yes, this is who Donald Trump is. But it's not only women, and it's not only this video that raises questions about his fitness to be our president, because he has also targeted immigrants, African Americans, Latinos, people with disabilities, POWs, Muslims, and so many others. So this is who Donald Trump is. And the question...
It is who Donald Trump is. He exposed who he was to us during the election, but people still voted for him, particularly white women, 54%, which still blows my mind to this day. So Donald Trump, the effect of him, the white supremacist effect of him, and what we're seeing in his administration today, he told us he was going to do this. He told us who he was through his actions, his words, speech, and actions. Words, speech, and actions. He told us what he was all about.
You know what? Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
He got himself involved in the NFL situation with one Colin Kaepernick. He called NFL players sons of a bitches. He incites. Listen.
We respect our flag.
This is Barack Obama. You're listening to Information Man. Don't forget to subscribe.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. Fired!
You see there, he incites. He's fired. It's almost like a reality show with one Donald Trump. He has very racist tendencies, views, attitudes, and as you heard on the audio that I played before, he really has a lot of xenophobia going on. Very racial individual. And like I said, it doesn't fall too far from the tree of his father. Not too far. Now, Donald Trump wants to give us a tax cut, but this is just another form of taking from the poor and the middle class and giving to the rich. Listen to this clip.
For the rich, but they know it's not, and what they will do is they don't even know the tax bill. The tax bill hasn't even been really put out yet.
Yeah. Shut up. Look, let me tell you, here's the deal. This Republicans are, once again, here they don't even know the bill yet. They don't know. Does he realize what's going on? Does he realize that they're writing up this tax bill? They're marking this sucker up right now. I mean, this is what's so crazy. What do you mean they don't even know the tax bill? The matter of fact, it's the associations. It's the retail associations. It's the owners of coal mines. It's the rich people, the captains of industry that are writing the bill. I mean, they're the ones. We do know. Now, let me give you an example. They're trying to fool you guys into thinking that, the middle class will benefit from the tax cut plan. It's a Trojan horse, ladies and gentlemen, because they're tiny and they're temporary. Let me repeat, the tax cuts for the middle class are small and temporary. Remember what Lou Hutt always tells us, the devil's in the details.
The devil is always in the details. And Donald Trump is a part of that devil. And this country put him in office. His tax cuts are going to ruin the middle class. You've already got the issue of net neutrality coming around because he's put his cronies in the FCC. They're going to mess with our internet, folks. They're going to make you think you're getting a nice tax cut, when in fact it's all to enrich the corporations and the rich business cronies. And the politicians in Washington, D.C. don't give a damn. You see, we have a posture in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. right now. A man who talks about he can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in New York and the voters will still vote for him. A man who talks about mental illness is the reason why you had the Texas shooting, not guns. However, one of the things that Donald Trump did when he got in office was to gut a guns provision bill or executive order that one President Obama put in that could have made a difference in saving some lives in some of the incidents that we've had in which we've had these white male domestic terrorists shooting people. Listen to this audio.
As President of the United States was Donald Trump trashed a new regulation that would have prevented potentially irresponsible and mentally incompetent people from being able to buy guns. That was one of the first things he did as President of the United States. And now he's running around the world telling people that it's not the gun, it's mental health. Well, if that's the case, then why did you trash the Obama regulation that would have prevented irresponsible people, mentally incompetent people like that gunman from getting a weapon, an assault weapon? It is the height of hypocrisy.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
Just like he said, I could shoot someone and get away with it. Of course he could, because he gutted the gun provision that one President Obama put in place that could have protected us. You know, Donald Trump is a despicable individual. He is a white supremacist. And what we have in America, and I'm going to say it again, is the Donald Trump effect, is the white supremacist effect. He even disrespects Native Americans.
You're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special.
You see, he talks down and marginalizes the Native people using terms like Pocahontas, which is a stereotypical term for Native American person. Very stereotypical, but it's typical of the white supremacist because the white supremacist ideology is to F with people, to mess with people.
On the planet are subject to a prison system, a bogus prison system, a prison system that should not exist, called a system of white supremacy. That is a prison for people of color. And the people of color have to do what the prison masters say. That's what supremacy means. And that supremacy is designed to do two things: dominate and mistreat. That's the purpose of it. Dominate and mistreat people of color. So therefore, you never expect anything to happen that should happen in that system. When the system is designed for things to continue to happen that should not happen. That wasn't the original system that was set up in the world, presumably. You could presume that at one time people didn't mistreat people, but people found out all kinds of ways to mistreat people. And it just so happens in 2017, the dominant way of mistreating people on the planet called Earth is through a system called racism, which we sometimes call white supremacy. And that happens to be the latest one, and the most powerful one. Yes, sir. So therefore, you suspect anything that happens in that system that shouldn't happen. Okay. The suspect should be who? The most powerful people. And who are they? Those white people who believe in and who practice the system of white supremacy.
You know what look at my African American over here. Look at him.
As he stated, the system of white supremacy is powerful. It controls the system that we are in, and Donald Trump is a manifestation of that white supremacy in the White House, put in the White House by white folks in this country who were so hell-bent on putting a white man in office to bring back the good old boy days. It's what's going on in this country today. I want to end there with my podcast.
This is Barack Obama. You're listening to Information Man. Don't forget to subscribe.
I want to thank everybody out there for supporting my podcast. I hope that I was able to open one's minds as it relates to the Donald Trump incident. Let's not forget that Donald Trump thinks that he can scare NFL owners as well.
There was an article today, it was reported, that NFL owners don't want to pick him up because they don't want to get a nasty tweet from Donald Trump. Do you believe that?
That's the mentality. That's the immature mentality of one Donald Trump, who we have in the White House, who we have in control of our government. And it somehow scares the hell. It definitely can scare the hell out of one. We've got to fight against this tyranny, because this is an individual that can get us all killed. The way he carries on. He likes to play around with Twitter like a child and get into debates and arguments with people. He was recently supporting a white supremacist woman over in Great Britain who's in charge of some fringe white right-wing British group who's against the Muslim people of Muslim faith in London or England. and he's tweeting and supporting what she's talking about. Donald Trump is a dangerous individual. This country, this country almost gets what it deserves. They vote for someone like this, and now you're getting pure bullshit hell. It's crazy. We've got to watch out for a man who talks like this.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
I want to thank everyone for listening to my podcast again. I'll be back with more presentation. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening, and have a good one.